creative in the culinary domain than if you know nothing about ingredients and how to cook. So you engage the creative process, you produce something, you created something. It doesn't mean it's very original, you just created it, that's all. And in terms of creative production, we can evaluate that, as we said, against what you've done in the past or against a social reference, what other kids did or can do, what other people can do. Okay. Let's take a famous case, because often when you think about creativity, you think about the famous creators. Let's take Van Gogh. He is a famous case. He was successfully creative in a major kind of way. Well, if you look into his life, you'll notice something is that in his life, you can find the different ingredients that we mentioned. For example, he had knowledge of other painters, notably Jean-Francois Millet, pictured there, who painted people in the French countryside doing agricultural work. This inspired Van Gogh's compositions in a major kind of way. He had Paul Gauguin, who was hanging around as an artist friend, not all the time with Van Gogh, but at the moment when Van Gogh produced the most creative works, Gauguin was hanging around in Arles, a French town. He lived at the yellow house of Arles, which is still there and is still yellow. And this was a very good place for him, a good environment. He felt good. He was in a good emotional state over there. And so this was a good moment for him. And Theo Van Gogh was giving him financial support, allowing him to focus his energy on painting. And so during this time, all the ingredients came together and he had a creative burst. He was not a super creative artist his whole life long. He had a moment when he did most of it, in fact. Okay, so let's talk about potential. This ability to develop, achieve, succeed a desired future state. It is latent. It is like the walnut. The walnut could become a big tree. It has potential if it falls in the right ground and it rains enough, etc., etc. But it could also become part of your salad, or it could become part of the ground, or a souvenir you put on your desk, or a science experiment sent on Mars to grow as a tree, perhaps. And so it has different potentialities, okay? Or part of a toy, okay. Now, Ribot was a famous French psychologist, unknown outside of the very limited circle of those who study creativity in France. And he wrote that every normal person creates more or less. It's part of our daily activity, daily thought. And sometimes we invent something already invented. So this was the idea of reinventing. And he also said creativity is not a generic thing. It goes by domain. So there's artistic creativity, numerical or mathematical, scientific, practical, mechanical, or engineering, commercial, business, and what he called utopian, moral, political type creativity. So he said we should really talk about creativity in a situated domain context. Okay. All this is the background to get to the moment of measurement. So now that we have a shared understanding somewhat of what it is, how are we going to measure it? Well, we have to first decide if we're going to measure accomplishment or direct potential. Okay? Let's talk about accomplishment. I could say, what have you done? Show me what you've done, what you've accomplished. This is not your potential. This is sort of the trace of what you've been able to do. And we would say, it suggests if you're already able to do a lot of stuff, you can do more. You must have had potential that you turned into accomplishment, okay? It's like the tail of the comet. If there's the tail of the comet, there must have been the comet that left the tail of the comet, okay? And if the comet's coming around once, it's probably coming around again in a few hundred years, all right? So we have ways to measure creative accomplishment, which are in fact measures of creative future potential. If you've already accomplished, you tend to do it again. And so this works, for example, we can count the number of notable works someone has done. We can show your work to a panel of judges. We could analyze your work with some kind of a checklist scale. Is it banal? Is it elaborated? We could ask you in an interview, what have you done? And you say. Or we could have an activity report of how much, how often you have done stuff. But all this works best for people who have the chance to do something, like adults in a job. It doesn't work very well for children, okay? Oh, whoa. Okay. Sorry. All right. Wow, I see. There's a little bit of a trend to go super quick on my slides. Okay. Why? Well, what I'd like to say here, if it works, yeah, is that